warm, and we'll be kicking off this great event, Saskatchewan, Land of the Living Skies, in a moment. So make yourself comfortable. I hope you've got a drink. I probably should have grabbed myself a cocoa, but I must admit I gave in and I got myself a glass of wine instead. But I'm sure it'll warm me up anyway. So hi to Stephen Lisa from Bath in the UK. So welcome first into the chat box. So thank you to Jackie in Spain. Welcome. Roy in Norwich, Robertson, Cambridge, Peter in Bowden, Cheshire, Colin from Dorset, and Elizabeth Atkinson in West London. Welcome. Right, Barbara over in Portugal. I hope it's a bit warmer there than it is in the UK. And Cliff in Worcester Park, out of West Yorkshire. Zainab in Camberley, not too far from me. I'm in Old Windsor, Zainab, and been surrounded by floodwater the last few days, unfortunately. Hello to Teresa in Upminster. Susan in Spain, welcome. Several people in Edinburgh by the looks of it. I don't know if you're all together or not. Hello to Martin, who's one of our regular contributors, Martin Sivington, welcome. In Wiltshire. Tamara in Hungary, welcome. Paul and Andrea in Stockton. And Pamela in Gillingham. Is it Gillingham or Gillingham? I never know. Oh, there was somebody from India, but we've missed it. Bill in Perth, hello, welcome. And to Patricia in Arizona, Karen in France. We see we're really international again tonight. Hello to Jill in Oxford. Hope you're all really comfy. Ashley in Saskatchewan, welcome. And Susan in London, Derby in Canada, whereabouts? Claire in Windsor. I presume that's Windsor, UK. Is it rather Windsor, Canada? I hope you're dry, Claire. It's been rather soggy where I am in Old Windsor this week. Denise in Mallorca, welcome. And Karen from Tourism Saskatchewan has joined us in the chat box. So do feel free to interact with Karen during the evening, and Karen will answer any questions as well as we're going along. Hello to Lisa in Lisbon, Aunt Jay in Scotland. So seems to be several people in from Scotland. Hello, Owen. We are going to kick off any second. We're just waiting. There are still people coming in, and then we will kick off. So, yeah, any moment now. We've got Rodri from Wanderlust in the chat box as well. So Rodri said he's looking forward to hearing it all this evening, but also I'm sure Rodri will help if there's any links, relevant links to our website or whatever. Hello, Deborah from Warwickshire, and Marsha from British Columbia. Well, welcome all, and thank you for joining us on this evening, where we are going to be talking about the Land of the Living Skies. And I'm sure for those of you who haven't been to Saskatchewan, you'll get a bit of a feeling as well as to why the province does use that phrase, Land of the Living Skies, which is such an evocative one. So we're going to have a packed schedule, because what we'll be doing in a few minutes is we're going to be hearing, first of all, from Aislinn George. Now, Aislinn has actually joined us live from, where are you this evening, Aislinn?
I'm here in Saskatoon, one of the biggest cities in the province here in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, welcome. So Aislinn's an award-winning travel writer, photographer and content creator. Behind the Lost Girls Guide to Finding the World, which I think is such a brilliant name. So Aislinn's a real go-to expert on Canada, and of course, particularly Saskatchewan. And but she has travelled solo in 65 countries around the world as well. So I'm sure if anybody's got any questions about solo travel, I know Aislinn's going to love to answer them, and how to travel in Saskatchewan as a solo traveller. So as she said, she's in Saskatoon right now. So really looking forward to hearing from Aislinn in a moment. And then after Aislinn gives us a bit of an overview of Saskatchewan, really gets us excited, then I'm going to be talking for a few minutes because I went to Saskatchewan, well, Saskatoon in particular, at the end of September for the first time. And so I'll be talking for just a few minutes about my experience there, and particularly around Indigenous tourism. And then after me, we will be going to James Butler. Hello, James. Welcome. You're not in Saskatoon tonight.
No, I'm in quite dark Oxfordshire, Lynn, tonight. Wish I was in Saskatchewan.
Yes, I think we all do right now. So James is Canada and Alaska product manager at Audley Travel, the tour operator, one of our very favourite tour operators. And James has worked promoting Canada and the travel industry for more than 25 years now, and he set up Audley's Canada and USA programs. And I know that James very much believes travel broadens the mind, as we all do. I think everybody on here would agree with that. Anyway, but really looking forward, James, to getting your impressions of Saskatchewan as well. I know you really rate it.
Yeah, then, really do. Looking forward to chatting, Lynn.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. And then after James, we'll be going to the all-important Q&A. And we will be joined for that one with Jodie Holiday. Good evening, Jodie. Oh, is your sound working now? Oh, no. Oh. Jodie's audio isn't working. That is so annoying. No, we still can't hear you. Oh, gosh. Okay, well, we'll be trying to sort Jodie out over the next 30 minutes or so. So annoying. We normally can't shut her up, so no. Jodie will hopefully all be sorted by the time we get to the Q&A. So Jodie is born and bred in Saskatchewan. And she's been with Tourism Saskatchewan for 15 years. And I know that Jodie loves to surprise people with how amazingly beautiful and diverse Saskatchewan is. And she says, don't ask her where her favourite spot is because there are too many and she's still discovering new ones. And she does admit it as well that once she gets talking, it's hard to get her to stop. Now, I promise we haven't done this deliberately, turning your sound off, Jodie. But no, we do look forward to hearing from you during the Q&A. So do put your questions in anyway into the chat box or the Q&A box during the evening. You may get an answer straight away, but we'll certainly also be coming to the questions at the end. So that is the run through for this evening. We will, for anybody who has to leave before the end, yes, we will be sending out a follow-up email, which will have the link in. So you will be able to watch it again, or, you know, see the bit at the end that you missed, whatever. And we will, in there as well, as usual, put some of the questions and answers and put any useful links in, place names, all those sorts of things. So please don't worry about that. If you don't catch something during the evening, it's good to mention it perhaps in the chat box, and then we will make sure that it's in that follow-up email newsletter. Okay, brilliant. So let's get started. Without further ado, I believe we have a video to get us in the mood. So let's see that.
There's a lot of, I guess, authenticity still to the prairies. You just kind of have to go out and find it.
Saskatchewan's quite a diverse place.
This area just has so much to offer.
You can leave home and within minutes you're experiencing nature at its best.
We're all tied together by nature.
Saskatchewan is a real agrarian place.
I remember being blown away and almost a bit embarrassed, thinking, oh my gosh, this is like a stone's throw away from where I grew up, and didn't even realize what was there.
I think there's a lot of places here that are overlooked.
It's peaceful, it's natural. This is the kind of place in the world anybody would want to be.
I think this is one of the nicest places in Canada.
But you have to be committed to come here because you're going to have a little bit of gravel road to drive on, but it is worth it.
It's the tenacity of the people, the community that really makes it special.
I think there's a misconception about who lives in rural areas, what their lives are like, what they are interested in, who they are. It kind of gets painted with a wide brush.
Old, young, male, female, LGBTQ, we're all related. It doesn't matter what religion, what color, what race, what gender. there's room for everybody here.
If you put in a little bit of effort, people are often excited to show you where they're from and what they're about. There's a lot of really interesting stories to tell.
All right.
Hi. Oh, yeah. Hi, Ashlyn. Okay. Did you enjoy that video?
Oh, I loved it. It highlighted so many amazing things I love about this province.
Oh, absolutely. No, I thought, oh, that got me so excited. So welcome. I'm going to leave it to you. Really looking forward to this. Take it away, Ashley.
Thank you. So welcome everybody to Saskatchewan. I can say that because that's where I am right now. I live here in Saskatoon. It's one of the largest cities in the province. And I am a travel writer that specializes in outdoor adventure travel. If you're interested in those types of activities, you can catch me online at The Lost Girls Guide and thelostgirlsguide.com, pretty much any social media channel out there. So I was born and raised here in Saskatchewan on a grain farm. My family still actively farms, and I am so passionate about this province. I have spent years traveling around it, literally from corner to corner, which is no small feat because we're a big province. And I'm really excited to spend a little bit of time with you all today and just share a snippet of why I love this province so much. So to give you all some context of where we are, I have a map of Canada and the United States, and obviously Saskatchewan is highlighted there in the middle in blue. So something that's really important is that in Canada, we are all treaty people, and we really try to honor the Indigenous and Métis people who traditionally called this country and this province home before we ever immigrated to Canada. So all of the experiences that I'm sharing with you today, they've all happened on treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10 lands. And so when people ask me where Saskatchewan is when they find out where I'm from in Canada, I kind of like to joke around a little bit and say I'm from Middle Canada, because that's obviously where it looks like we are. Technically, the central point of Canada is in Manitoba, just to the right of our province, but we're quite close to it. And it just really helps visualize where in this massive country we all are. So Saskatchewan actually means swiftly flowing river. It's in the Indigenous language Cree, and our province is aptly named not only because we do have the South and North Saskatchewan rivers that run through here, and they eventually work their way through Manitoba and they flow out into Hudson Bay. But we have so many amazing rivers and lakes, and I'm going to share a little bit more about that as we continue on. But just gives you some context around the name, and it's sometimes hard to pronounce the name of the province, but yeah, Saskatchewan, swiftly flowing river. It's a really beautiful name and tribute to our province. So if you're going to come to Saskatchewan, you need to be prepared depending on the time of year you're coming. So right now we are in the middle of winter and it can get very cold here. So the temperature ranges anywhere from -40 to +35 degrees Celsius. So we swing a lot. And actually today when I woke up, I think the temperature was -33 degrees Celsius, and that doesn't include wind chill. So it can really push those temperatures to be quite cold. But as I like to tell people, I'm really passionate about winter, getting out in the snow. There's no such thing as bad weather. You just need to think about the layers that you're wearing and putting on. So we have really great insulation for our houses so we can keep it at a nice warm temperature. And when we go outside, we're always wearing, I guess beanies is what most people call it, but we call them toques, little woolen hats that we wear on our heads, mitts, scarves, and lots of layers. That's kind of the trick to it. But really, Saskatchewan really shines in the summer months. As I mentioned, it can get up to, the 30s for temperature. So you can get some really hot days. We love to spend time at the beach and head to the lake. Really diverse province when it comes to temperatures. And I think that's what makes it so interesting to travel, is that you can go to the same location 4 times a year and get a completely different experience there, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or the winter months. So to share a little bit more geographically about the province, so we're about the size of the state of Texas. So a really big province. The design of our province is kind of interesting. As you can see on the screen, it looks a little bit like a rectangle. And there's a little joke in the province here that it's easy to draw and hard to pronounce. And our province is really unique. We have a lot of different areas and zones that you can visit. In the north, and this is about the north half of the province, we profile it as the Northern Lights and waterways. This is because it's a lot of forest and lakes, and not as many people live in the northern part of the province as we live in the southern, probably third of the province. So it's really remote, some amazing adventures, and a really incredible place to get to if you like off the beaten path travel, self-supported travel. The green band running through the map there, that's our unlimited lakes and parklands. And in the center of that green area, there's a lighter green block almost right in the middle there. That's Prince Albert National Park. I will be talking a little bit more about that park, so that just gives you a visual of where it is. And we have Prairie Life and City Lights. We're a very agrarian community and province. As I mentioned, I grew up on a grain farm, so agriculture is really important. And we have lots of space for growing wonderful, healthy, rich foods here. And when you get into the southern bottom corner of the province, we tailor it as the living skies and badlands. Okay. And this is a really unique area of Saskatchewan where you get a lot of the natural prairie grasslands, which you don't see a lot in North America anymore. And you can see a lot of wildlife. You can see wildlife all across the province too, but there's some special ones that you can see when you head down to the Badlands in that southern part of the province. So if you're thinking of coming to Saskatchewan, there's a few different ways you can come into the province. If you're going to fly in direct, I recommend flying into our main hubs of Regina or Saskatoon. So Regina is our capital city, and it's about 2.5 hours south of Saskatoon. Saskatoon is a little bit bigger, but both airports service all parts of the world as well, so really easy to access us. And if you are considering traveling in from a neighboring province, you can fly into Calgary and drive across into Saskatchewan, drive east into Saskatchewan, or you can fly into Winnipeg, which is Manitoba is the province to the east of us, and drive west into Saskatchewan. I would say the drive to Winnipeg and Calgary, if you're from Saskatoon or Regina, would be about 6 to 7 hours, which for us as Canadians doesn't sound like too much. We'll do a weekend trip to Calgary, but I know sometimes that does sound like a lot. But we have great roads to travel on, so the trips usually go quickly. So when you are traveling here, I do recommend that you rent a vehicle. That's the easiest way to see as much as you can of the province in the time that you're here. So we have both sealed and paved roads and major highways connecting all the cities and lots of different destinations. But you'll also notice when you visit, we have a lot of grid or gravel roads. They're unsealed, but they are great to drive on. The speed limits are a little bit slower. In the southwest, sometimes you have to be careful if there's been a lot of rain recently. Some of the less used grid roads get a little bit sticky with the type of mud and clay there, but it's really easy to get around, and I do recommend renting a vehicle. If you are staying in the downtown core of either of our major cities, very walkable and lots to walk around and see. So you only really need to rent a vehicle when you're heading out of the major cities here. As for what kind of travel Saskatchewan is known for, so it's really family friendly. I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about some of the more natural features of the province and focusing on our parks. And if you are from Saskatchewan and somebody asks what you're doing on the weekend, you're probably going to the lake with your family and friends. And all of our parks are set up to really help make everybody have a really wonderful time and enjoy it all together with young kids and grandparents. It's really family friendly. I am a solo traveler myself. I spent most of my time traveling the province on my own. It's also very friendly for solo travelers. And one thing you'll find in Saskatchewan is we're all really friendly, especially when you're in a small town. I mean, it's very obvious when there's visitors in a small town, because when I say small town, I usually mean like 1,000 to 2,000 people, so everybody knows each other. And it doesn't take long for people to recognize that you're a traveler and a visitor, and they'll be very excited to chat with you, share their best tips and tricks on where to go and what to see. And in fact, that's how I've based most of my travels around the province. When I get to the city I'm visiting, I stop in at the coffee shop and start up a conversation and ask the locals what to see and do. And people are so happy to help you have the best experience possible. So really great for families, but if you like to travel solo like I do, it's an amazing destination for that as well. So just to share a little bit more about the province. So our northern half is mainly forest. A lot of people think of us as like a prairie province, but we are 50% forest, and we have 100,000 lakes. So it doesn't matter where you are, you'll be able to find a lake somewhere when you come to visit. And if you have the chance to get on a flight in the northern part of the province, when you get airborne, you can look out and all what you see are lakes dotted around the forest. Like, it's completely green and blue when you get up in the air. And every time I'm up there visiting the north, I'm just completely in awe and blown away by how much fresh water that we have in the province here. So northern Saskatchewan also has some of the best whitewater canoeing in the country. And I mention this because I'm an avid canoeer and kayaker. I love to paddle. And I've had some of the most amazing multi-day trips in the north where you can go experience some of this, whether you're on our lakes or rivers. And we have a really great company, Churchill River Canoe Outfitters. If you don't have any experience, they will take you out and guide you and help you have the most incredible remote experience in Saskatchewan that's supported, where you don't have to worry about anything, and the meals are gourmet as well. So this is one of my favorite places to get to every summer, and I try to do a canoe trip every year just because it's something so unique and wonderful to experience here in Saskatchewan. And this is just another picture of, I recently did a canoe trip on the Foster River. And so you can have these multi-day experiences. Fishing is really big here in Saskatchewan too. In fact, I think we hold a couple world records for some of the largest fish. Lake Athabasca, I think 102-pound trout was pulled from the lake. So if you love fishing and you love visiting fishing or outdoor camps, this is another really great destination for that. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about our provincial parks. We have 24 parks across the province, and we have recreation sites as well. This is where the locals and travelers go to escape to nature, and it really hones in on all those outdoor activities: camping, fishing, hiking, hanging out on the beaches and getting out into the lake to go boating or, kayaking, paddle boarding. Accommodations range everything from, if you like to backcountry camp, you can get into that. We have lots of front country camping sites, and you see everything from big campers to little tents. We have really amazing accommodations as well, ranging from hotels all the way down to more glamping style. They're called Camp Easy Yurts, part of the provincial parks have in quite a few of the different parks. And so it doesn't matter what your style of travel is, there's a little bit something for everybody, whether you like it rustic or a little more luxurious. One of the parks I just want to mention, and I think James will talk about this a little later on too, is Cypress Hills Interprovincial Park. So this is the only park in Canada that actually crosses two borders. It borders Alberta in the west and then Saskatchewan. And if you are coming in from Calgary, this is a great park to add to your itinerary and drive through. I visited this numerous times, and every time I go, there's something new and exciting to see in the park. There's some really great viewpoints. We do have flat areas in Saskatchewan, so when you're driving, you can see a long ways. And there's another local joke that in Saskatchewan, you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. And here in Cypress Hills, the elevation gets up to just shy of 1,500 meters above sea level. So you really do get incredible views across the prairie grasslands. Again, more amazing opportunities for camping here. And we do have a historic fort called Fort Walsh here if you love history. And you can go and learn about the Northwest Mounted Police, which was the precursor to the RCMP here in Canada. So they had a fort down in Cypress Hills that is definitely worth the visit if you plan on stopping in here. One bucket list destination that I want to touch on as well is the Athabasca Sand Dunes Provincial Park. Now, this is like the creme de la creme when it comes to epic experiences. It's very remote and it's not always the easiest to get to, but I want to share about it because it's something really unique and incredible here in the province. And it's a view that I don't think many people think of when they think of Saskatchewan. You can see in the photos, it almost looks like the Sahara. Lots of sand. This isn't a desert, but these are natural dunes that have formed since the glacier covered parts of Canada and North America in about 10,000 years ago. These are the most northerly sand dunes in the world, which is kind of neat. I was able to go visit them a couple summers ago, and it was like one of the best trips of my life. It was so incredible. I was also able to go with my mom, so it was really special to share it with her. And a really fun fact for you all is that Saskatchewan has more sand than the entire coastline of Canada, which is even more impressive when you realize that Canada has the longest coastline in the world. It's like 3 edges of our country were open to the water, and that's about 243,000 kilometers. So you can expect to see really wonderful sand and beaches in our lakes here. And the Athabasca Sand Dunes, while remote, is just an incredible destination that really highlights the diversity of our province. So one park that I want to share a little bit more about, because I highly recommend you go visit if you have the opportunity when you visit, is Prince Albert National Park. So I pointed it out earlier on the map. You can see on this map I have on the screen, it's that dark green section right in the center of Saskatchewan. So it's a wilderness park, and it's in the transition area between Aspen Parkland and the Boreal Forest. And if you love wildlife, this is where you want to come to see the wildlife. So I have seen all of these animals personally when I visited the park. There's some friendly foxes that hang out near some of the roadways that you can see really well from your vehicle. I've seen lynx, particularly in the wintertime when the park's a little bit quieter. You can see bears, there's river otters, and one animal that you almost are guaranteed to see, I've never visited the park and not see them, are what I like to call the resident elk. The town site of Waskesiu has a herd of elk that just wanders through and hangs out all the time. You can come out from your hotel or grabbing a cinnamon bun or ice cream, and you might see some of these elk just laying on the grass and hanging out in front of you. That being said, these are wild animals, so of course you always want to give them lots of distance and treat them with respect, but it's a really great park to come out and see some wildlife safely at a distance. And oftentimes just from, the seat of your vehicle, you can look out the window and have an opportunity to see all of these animals. In fact, every picture on this screen I was looking at from my vehicle. So the park is set up, there's a central town site, and there's hotels and camping, front country and back country. And this park is just incredible for hiking, paddling, biking, those very quintessential Canadian experiences of getting out into the wilderness. And it is such a great place to go in the summer months, although I also love to get up there in the wintertime. It's a little bit quieter and you can snowshoe and cross-country ski as well. One hike in particular that I want to share with you all is called Grey Owl's Hike. This is probably one of the most iconic and historical hikes in Saskatchewan, but also in Canada as well. So this hike is named after the renowned British conservationist Grey Owl, or Archibald Delaney. He had a cabin on a lake called Adjuan Lake here, and he actually lived with 2 beavers, which sounds very Canadian when you say it out loud, but his cabin, which you can see in the photo, on the right side of the cabin, there's actually an opening underneath the cabin that these beavers that he kind of had as pets could come and go from inside his cabin. So it's a really iconic spot to get to. And you can hike there and you can paddle there. It is a 42-kilometer round trip hike. I do know people who have done it in one day. They'll trail run it, but it's usually best seen on a multi-day camping or paddling adventure. And something really cool about this hike as well is there is a section, if you're paddling it, where you actually have to do a portage. So portage just means that you're carrying your boat and supplies from one section overland to the other, because you can't cross the river due to whether it's shallow or a variety of different reasons. And so they have this really amazing rail car portage, which is super unique. So obviously you can see in the photos, there's these carts that you can set your boats on, and you push it about 1 kilometer through the forest until you get to the end of the portage and you put it back in the river. And so in these photos, you can see that we have canoes loaded up, but I've portaged it with canoes, paddle boards, and you can also take boats in, and I've done that as well. So you can take an actual motorboat, usually a smaller fishing style one, put it on the cart and portage it across to Kingsmere Lake, where you can continue on your adventure. So just something really unique and cool in the park. And another highlight is in a variety of different parks in Saskatchewan. This here is on Kingsmere Lake in Prince Albert National Park. You can find purple sand. This is really unique, and the reason it is purple is the gemstone garnet has been weathered out over years, being pounded by all the water and waves. And in the sand, it has turned into fine, tiny little pieces of sand, and you'll find it washed up on the shore. It's easier to find some of the sand earlier in the season before the waves kind of dissipated into the water. But this was a paddleboard I did this past summer and came across some big bands of purple sand on the beaches. So another unique thing to add to your bucket list when you come to visit. I do want to touch on the night sky here in Saskatchewan, because this is something truly amazing that we have access to. And I feel like as locals, we don't always appreciate it because it's just what we see and experience every day. So we have several dark sky preserves throughout the province. Grasslands National Park, which is in the southern part of Saskatchewan, is one of the best places to go to see the dark skies. In fact, they're considered the darkest dark sky preserve in the country. So if you've ever wanted to see the stars or the Milky Way or the Northern Lights, this is the province to come visit and check it out. It's truly incredible to be standing out there. It's so quiet and looking up into the sky. It's really surreal and otherworldly. And there's just, you can see billions and billions of stars. It's truly spectacular. And speaking of the night skies, one of my favorite things is getting to see the Northern Lights. We're truly blessed with not a lot of light pollution here. And even in the middle of Saskatoon, I have seen the Northern Lights come out and dance over the city. So the Northern Lights are caused by solar activity. When it hits the atmosphere of the Earth and interacts with some of the different molecules, you get these amazing dancing, different colored lights. Most often we see green here in Saskatchewan, but you can occasionally see reds and purples if it's a really big Northern Lights storm. One of the biggest questions people ask me is, how can I see the Northern Lights? When can I see them? So because it's a natural phenomenon, there's never a guarantee. So I have 3 tips for people when they ask me this. The first one is to download the Aurora app on your cell phone. There's a few different apps out there, but the Aurora app is the one I usually go to, and it can give you forecasts and tells you a percentage of the chance that you might get to see it. I also tell people to head north. Go away from light pollution. If you're in a city, head north out of the city and look northwards. And when I say get away from any light pollution, I mean turn out the headlights of your vehicle. Don't look at the screen on your cell phone, because your eyes need about up to 20 minutes to adjust to the darkness. So you might be able to see it a little bit better. And I always tell people to be patient. You might get a forecast on the app that tells you the Northern Lights are going to be out, and you go out to look and you don't see anything, or you could just be out and not expect it, and all of a sudden you see them dancing across the sky. Sometimes they last from 5 minutes to literally all night. You could be out there for hours watching them. So it's never a guarantee, but if you do happen to be in Saskatchewan, take the time to hang out at night and look up and see what you might be able to catch going on in the sky. This is just another photo. I happened to go winter camping with some friends. We set up a canvas tent. We snowmobiled and cross-country skied in. And on one of the nights we were out camping, the northern lights came out and I was able to hop out of the tent and snap this photo. And it was just like such an extraordinary moment and very unexpected. We didn't know the northern lights were going to come out. So it was kind of a wonderful surprise to see. I just want to talk about a couple more things before I pass this off to Lynn to share. But another really cool thing about Saskatchewan is that we're on a major continental migratory flyway. And I actually grew up near two of these areas here in Saskatchewan. And it wasn't until I kind of left Saskatchewan, did some traveling, and then came home to realize how incredible this actually is. So the photo on the left, it might be a little bit hard to see, but that's actually hundreds and thousands of birds taking flight out of a field here in the province. And this is a common scene to see, especially in the springtime and the fall when the birds are migrating. And we have some really amazing sites where you can go and see these birds. I think there's been one-day counts where they've counted over 300,000 birds. And there's lots of endangered species. You can see piping plovers, peregrine falcons, and the whooping crane. They take obviously a little bit more patience and time to be able to see them. Lots of eagles, particularly in the north, but you do see eagles flying through different areas of the province, especially as they're moving across and flying down into the United States. And you'll see up to 300 bird species that are migrating through the province. So really incredible opportunity to see birds if you're a birder. I know people are really passionate about wildlife, so an amazing province to come visit. We also have a really unique lake here in the province. It's considered the Dead Sea of Canada, and it just has a really high mineral content, which and is really salty, which is different because we have quite a few freshwater lakes here, and it's so buoyant. So you often see photos of people out floating in the lake, reading a book, or there's a really popular photo of somebody reading a newspaper. That's how buoyant it is. And there's lots of Indigenous legends and storytelling about the lake's healing properties. And Manitou Lake is just over an hour away from Saskatoon and about 2 hours from Regina. So it's really not too far from our major cities. It's also an amazing destination to stop in the summer months, because as you can see, they have a wonderful sandy beach. You can head out paddle boarding. They have an outdoor movie theater, like a traditional drive-in movie theater. Sometimes you can go catch double plays there and watch two movies in a night. They have a really unique dance hall with a horsehair dance floor, which just helps with the springiness when they have weekend music and dance events. So it's a really cute destination to get to and really unique properties of the lake. So another place you might want to add to your list when you come and visit. So I always like to say that Saskatchewan as a province competes on an international stage when it comes to our culture, our cuisine, and definitely our natural landscapes. We're so fortunate here in Saskatchewan to have access to the outdoors like we do. It really is such a privilege, and it's just pristine outdoors. There's only about 1.2 million of us in the entire province, so you're guaranteed to find some space where you can just be on your own and really enjoy being out in nature. And I always say, as a local here, when seeking out adventure, you don't have to travel across borders to find cool things to do. We have so much to offer here in the province. And yeah, you can have just as many amazing experiences in Saskatchewan as you can around the world. So I want to thank you all for your time and for listening. I'm very passionate about this province, so if you ever have any questions or you do plan a trip here, never hesitate to reach out to me, because I love to share all the amazing places we have here in the province. So yeah, thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll keep an eye on that question box and get my answers ready for you. And I think with this, I will pass it back to Lynn and her presentation.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. That was so inspiring. Oh, good grief. I mean, I think I'm probably speaking for everybody that we didn't appreciate just how diverse Saskatchewan was. And I mean, that was incredible. I mean, I know that we got a question about the beaches. We can't in Europe, I think, quite imagine having beaches by lakes. And then to have your own Dead Sea to have all the sand dunes. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. And what were the number of lakes again?
Over 100,000 lakes. Like, it's overwhelming. You can't even hope to see them all, even if you live your entire life here.
Exactly. I can't imagine. I mean, this is it. It just wouldn't be possible, would it? Good grief. Oh, that's incredible. Okay, well, thank you so much. And look forward to seeing you again later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, good grief. I don't know how I'm going to follow that. That was incredible. And so inspiring, so inspiring. So, yes, I feel... I think I've got imposter syndrome here because I'm just going to show a few snaps from my phone. And basically, I was in Saskatchewan back at the end of September. I was there for a conference. It was in Saskatoon. And that is my only Saskatoon photo that I'm going to show you at the moment. And basically, it was a tourism conference, but one of the appeals to me, I must admit, for going was that I'd never been to Saskatchewan, and I was a bit curious, what is there? But I didn't have a lot of time. So after the conference, I did stay on for a few days. But obviously, I had to focus in on something. So I focused in on the Indigenous tourism side, as I realised that other than some Indigenous tourism that I'd experienced on the West Coast, I really didn't know much about it in Canada. And I think it's something that we don't really hear much about in the UK. So just to say as well that I will be doing a proper Wanderlust story about this, and that will be out in the magazine that comes out at the end of March. So I will be doing a multi-page article then, and with a lot more information. But just to give you a little bit of an insight, because I'd like to say I was genuinely surprised. I learnt so much and had an absolutely wonderful and really enhancing time. Absolutely. So first of all, as I say, this is just Saskatoon. We haven't really got time to go too much into it, but one of the reasons I like this photo is just because you could get the impression of the sky. And that is the thing about Saskatchewan that strikes you, even in the city, just how you can see the sky, how open it is. There's not many multi-story buildings, but you're always very, very conscious of space, and which is just absolutely wonderful. We mentioned at the start that the province's motto is Land of the Living Skies. And Jodie from Tourism Saskatchewan, it struck me the first time I met her when she told me that she gets claustrophobic in mountains. And that seemed, that phrase really struck with me. I thought, really? But then having spent a few days there and being out in all that space, I could start to appreciate it. But like I say, I was there actually to find out, for that bit of time I had, to find out more about Indigenous peoples of Saskatchewan and of opportunities for Indigenous tourism. And Ashlyn mentioned the Métis people earlier, and I see that there was also a question in the chat box where somebody asked about not so much about Métis, but about Indigenous tourism, and some people having links back to the island of Orkney, or the Orkney Islands, rather, several Orkney Islands. And yes, I must admit, I knew next to nothing about the Métis people before I went to Saskatchewan. And sorry, I've got a slightly sore throat this week. And if you don't know who the Métis were and still are, there's over 500,000 Métis in Canada. The Métis people were a mixture between the First Nations people and the Europeans who came in to do fur trapping and trading, who very typically were French or Canadian. Sorry, not Canadian, French or Scottish. And so what happened was that the French and the Scottish and the English fur trappers married First Nations women. And so their descendants became Métis people. And this is a recognised Indigenous group within Canada. and a very important group with their own culture and their own traditions. And so back in the 19th century, the Métis people, they had, as well as perhaps doing the trapping and the trading, they'd actually had started, from what I can gather, they'd started to settle down and to farm land along rivers. The reason this church was built was because an awful lot of them were Roman Catholic. And so this particular church is at a place called the Batoche National Historic Site. It's not too far from Saskatoon. Everywhere I went was within very easy distance of Saskatoon. And so the Métis people back in the 19th century settled down here. They had lots of land along the river and were farming. They'd got a priest over from France. They'd built this wonderful church. But then the British, the Crown as they were called, were at that time spreading west across Canada, and they were signing treaties with the various Indigenous groups. And these treaties, which I'll touch on again in a minute, these had a profound effect, of course, on the Indigenous peoples of Saskatchewan and the rest of Canada. So the Métis people, of course, were a little bit of a different situation again. From what I can gather, the British didn't quite know how to deal with them, but what they didn't want to do was leave them as they were farming. And so there was a rebellion, an uprising of the Métis people along with the First Nations people around them. And so there was a battle in 1885, and it was at Batoche, at this National Historic Site. And it's really worth a visit if you hadn't heard, like me, before about the Métis people and what they went through. I would really recommend this. It's a beautiful site. It's still very much as it was in 1885. This was where the priest lived and then celebrated Mass when it was banned and couldn't use the church. And this was the cemetery. And because it won't surprise you to hear that despite the Métis putting up with their Cree neighbours a real fight, they did ultimately lose the battle. And so this cemetery has obviously the remains of some of those lives that were lost. Having said that, it's although it's poignant here about it, as the guide said there, it's actually a real celebration as well, though, of Métis culture, of Métis life, and which you learn so much about. And as I do say, they are one of the recognised Indigenous groups of Canada, and you will probably meet Métis people while you are there. And it is good that today they are very much recognised. So very much recommend that, the Batoche National Historic Site. And this gives you an idea of the landscape there as well. And in fact, the British Army apparently came along this river, the Saskatchewan River, and that is how they got up. But it's just a beautiful spot and a place to really enjoy and reflect. So from there, though, we went to sample a new tourism offering from an Indigenous group. And this is called the Peniska Tourism Experience. And this is a group they're part of the Cree Nation, and they've got a very rich history as well. But they have recently started offering tourism experiences, and we were one of the first. When I say we, there were 4 or 5 of us, including Jodie. And so we went along to try out this experience. So we had an afternoon and evening with Peniska Tourism. This is again very close to Saskatoon. And the guy in the middle, Kevin, is a real force of nature. And here he is introducing us, telling us about them as a nation. And as you see, we were going to explore the area, and including exploring their reservation by quad bike. And what was incredibly moving was we went along to a site which was one of the residential schools, St. Michael's Residential School. Now, a lot of you, I think, will have seen about the residential schools in the news over the last few years. And we haven't got time to go too much into it, but what did happen over the decades was that the children of Indigenous people were taken away from their parents, put into residential schools, very often nowhere near their homes, so they wouldn't necessarily see their parents ever again. And in these schools, obviously, they were not able to use their language, and they would lose their culture, their traditions. Not surprisingly, of course, when they left school, finally, they didn't really know where they sat in society. So the story of the residential schools is incredibly, it's upsetting, frankly, and I think that you will find yourself really moved about it if you do visit any of the sites where the schools were. In this case, we have met local chief, and we're having a smudging ceremony, which is like a cleansing little ceremony before we visit the site where the school was. And so we are rubbing ourselves, cleansing ourselves with herbs. This school, I mean, this is actually fairly recent history, because this school, actually, the residential school in this particular spot, ran up to the 1950s, 1960s, 1982, in fact, 1982. And it did burn down a few years later. And this was so sad. I think we were all in tears here, because this was a little commemoration to the children who effectively disappeared, who never came out of the school. And as I say, you'll have seen in the news about how at some of these schools they have found bodies of children. So what has happened here is that people have left offerings of toys and so on, and to commemorate these children and make sure that they're not forgotten. Oh my gosh, you know, it's doesn't bear thinking about it. It is so sad. But from there, we went on to a fort. And this is Fort Carlton. Well, this itself isn't Fort Carlton, but it was set in a really beautiful area, and Peninsula Tourism had set up these new little sort of eco lodges to stay in. This was new accommodation. It was just opening after we were there. It wasn't quite set up yet, so we couldn't stay the night, unfortunately. But this accommodation will be open obviously this year. If you go, you can stay. If you go to Fort Carlton, and you get wonderful views over a meadow, and apparently there's a good chance of seeing bears and other wildlife if you're staying there. This is Fort Carlton. It's a fairly low-level fort. There's not an awful lot to see. And being wood, it did burn down over times, but it's been recreated. And so what the Peniska people did was put on various dances during the evening. Now, this might not look like a First Nations outfit. I believe this is more of a Métis type outfit, because as we were told, they have shared a lot of the dances. And so during the evening there, we saw lots of different dances, and it was explained lots of different costumes, because all the costumes have meaning. And it was brilliant to get this explanation as to what the dances meant, what the different costumes meant, what the music meant, and gave such an insight. And there's a First Nations dancer as well. So we got this incredible insight, like I say, and we also got to eat very local, typical food as well, which really added to the experience. And we finished the evening off round a campfire. There seems to be an awful lot of that in Saskatchewan. And we drank hot chocolate. There was storytelling around the fire, and we ate bannock cake, and it was a very magical evening. This is actually moving on to somewhere else, but another Indigenous experience, tourism experience you can do. This is actually at the Dakota Dune Resort, which is a hotel. Yeah, when you turn up there, it looks like a hotel almost anywhere. It's got a casino. It's got a golf course, lots of facilities, real mixture of people staying there. Some are there for the facilities there. Some are using it as a base for exploring the region. Some of them are, keen walkers. There's a lot of really good hiking around. But what you can also do there is try out some of the cultural immersion program that's on offer. And so, for instance, this was one of our guides there, and we had a storytelling session with him, and he was a dancer as well. And it was brilliant to be able to have that close conversation with him and find out everything, including, again, what's the significance of what he's wearing, for instance, because there is a story behind everything. This was at the end of the evening. It does get really chilly there at night, or it can do even in summer, but really, really lovely. We'd been sitting around the fire, and we'd had drums and everything, and a very special night. Actually, before we move on, though, I just remembered, I think I've got a little video to play here. So what we did do as well, just before it got dark, was we participated in some Indigenous games. And these were games that children used to do, First Nations children, but there was a good reason for every game. It really improved their hand-eye coordination. It improved their fishing skills or their hunting skills. And so there was a meaning behind every game. And so I am often a bit skeptical about joining in things. I'm terrible. But we did have a go at some Indigenous games. So if we can just have the short video, I'll just show you one. Right, so this one, you can see we've got long poles here. They're just very natural branches from a tree. And this is practicing our hunting skills. Sadly, I was rubbish at it. And I realised that, yes, I would have starved. I would not have been made a hunter. But we had lots of goes at it, and it was a lot of fun. So if you do find yourself, because in fact, that wasn't the only time over those days that I found myself in a situation to have a go at some traditional games. If you do get a chance to do it, they're definitely worth doing. And then a place that really stole my heart. I mean, I think I visited something like 4 times in the end. And I think it's pronounced, I did know it at the time, but it's Wanderlust Heritage Park. And this is just outside Saskatoon, very, very close. And it's in consideration to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and that is likely to come into being next year. So this is a very significant and important site. Now, you might not see it just looking at this. I found it very hard to photograph the place. And but essentially, part of the reason why this was so important, well, there's several reasons why it was so important. They have evidence here that Plains Indigenous people were spending time here 6,000 years ago. So for the last 6,000 years, this was a meeting place for Plains First Nations people. They would come here, they would trade here, and they would perhaps stay here for several months. It might be somewhere where, for instance, they spent the winter. And it had lots of things going for it. It has running water, there's a river. It has quite a bit of shelter because it is surrounded by completely flat land. But when you're there, you get folds and trees and quite a bit of shelter. As I say, the trees were quite significant as well. It got some trees. It meant that they could have fires. But it also had 2 buffalo drops where bison could be driven over and killed then for food. So this was something that the First Nations people only did occasionally when they needed to. So, for instance, very typically in the fall, they would find a herd of bison and all the warriors would get together. They had a real system for doing it where they would gradually funnel down the bison until they went over a cliff, a steep area. And because the bison are very thick set, very heavy in front, they can't really stop themselves. They go over and they probably, they might well break their neck, or there would be warriors there, of course, to put them out of their suffering straight away. And so this would be one of the sites, of course, where the bison would get driven over. And those bison would provide food for the winter. They'd provide, obviously with their skins, they would provide material, if you like, for clothing, for the teepees, and for so many things. And the whole bison was used in a lot of different ways. So incredibly important to the Plains people. And this meadow would have been used then. It probably would have had big cooking pots and so on. And this is where they would have worked with those bison. The building that you see at the top is the visitor centre. And it's absolutely brilliant. It's got a kind of museum inside. It's got interpretation boards. And the place is all about interpretation anyway. So depending what day and time you're there, it might be that you have a go at Indigenous games, the sorts of things I was just talking about. It might be that you find out all about teepees, how the teepees are built, how they're moved. You might find out about the archaeology of the heritage park. So many things. So this, for instance, in this case, we'd been finding out about the teepees, about food and cooking and how the people ate. The guides are mostly Indigenous and local, so that means a lot as well. And in this case as well, we were toasting marshmallows over the fire. Really interesting. This is Dr. Ernest Walker. He was co-founder of the Heritage Park. He's a top archaeologist, and he realised the significance of the area really early on as a young man, and so was very instrumental in the setting up of it as the Heritage Park, and he's been very involved in the UNESCO bid. And he's a remarkable person, and if you're there, you'll hopefully meet him and get to spend a bit of time with him there. He's got an office there and spends a lot of time. And in the last few years, he has found some petroglyphs, and these are the only ones in the area, and there are different sizes. Here's one of them here, and that's been a really significant find, and it's all helping again build the story of this area and of the heritage park, of this very special place, which a lot of the local Indigenous people also consider very much a spiritual place. There's something very powerful about it. And this was something I got told by several people, that they really feel the power of this place. I mentioned bison, buffalo, and a lot of the bison got wiped out, say 150 years ago or more. And this was devastating, of course, for the First Nations people, for the Plains people, because this is what they relied on. This was their food. This was their warmth. This was everything. And but unfortunately, they got decimated in a very short time. And this went on to have a huge impact on the Indigenous people. But what has happened now is that bison have been reintroduced to Wanderlust, and I think they've got something like, they should have more than 33 now. 33 bison were introduced. I did see mating bison when I turned up there, so I'm sure there's more bison on the way as well. And we're only just as well beginning to understand the significance of the grasslands and how important grasslands are. And again, the bison are all very important in preserving the grasslands. This guy was remarkable. His name is Jordan. He is a what they call an interpreter at the visitor centre there, the Heritage Centre. He's also a student. He's doing a double major in Indigenous affairs and in archaeology. And I'd been told by other people who'd visited just how brilliant he is, and so it was a pleasure to meet him and spend some time with him, and to get an insight into the whole thing about treaties. Ashlyn mentioned treaties very, very briefly, and what I didn't appreciate before is that the whole of Canada falls into different treaty areas, and so where I was in Saskatoon area fell into what was called Treaty 6. So this was a physical treaty that was filled out between the First Nations people and the British Crown. And here at the Heritage Centre, they do have a copy of the original Treaty 6. And Jordan here was actually descended from one of the two main chiefs who was involved in that, agreeing the treaty, and has signed it and has signed the treaty. If I had more time, I could talk for hours about treaties, but sadly we don't have time. But as I say, there will be a story on Wanderlust and coming out at the end of March, and I'm going to try and explain a bit more about this. So very quickly as well, just to finish off, I've got another little video because back in Saskatoon, I was very lucky with the timing. The weekend I was there was called the Weekend of Truth Reconciliation, and it's recognising what happened to the Indigenous people, what happened with the residential schools, and so on. Indeed, this is where I got this particular T-shirt from. But also that day they had a powwow, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the term powwow, have a bit of an idea what it is. Well, I got to go to one, and it really was good. Anybody could just go to it and watch it, and it was a huge event with hundreds, if not thousands, of Indigenous people represented there and participating in it. So let's just finish with a short video of that. Right, so let's welcome back James. James, welcome.
Hello, Lynn. Thank you very much for that.
Right, I'm going to leave you to it.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Lynn. My name is James. I'm the Canada and Alaska product manager here at Audley. I'm very grateful to Wanderlust and Saskatchewan Tourism for this opportunity to chat to you about my trip to Saskatchewan last August. It was my first trip to the province, despite having travelled extensively around the rest of Canada for more than 25 years now. So it was just great to finally get there. There are so many highlights I'd love to talk to you about. And I think the most important thing to say to begin with is that I was particularly struck by the warmth of the welcome and the friendliness and the courteousness of local people. I was also struck by how diverse the province is, as I think the others have said. Yes, parts are flat, but it also has lots of undulating hills, fabulous lakes, and river canyons. This is a province where you will meet fewer international visitors, and instead really have a chance to meet local people and get a genuine sense of that warm sense of Canadian hospitality. It's also relatively inexpensive and great value for money, so another reason to travel. Now, as Aisling mentioned, there are no direct flights from the UK, but the province's main gateways, Saskatoon and Regina, are served by plenty of flights from Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, and other Canadian cities. But you can also get there quite easily by driving from Calgary or Edmonton, which are just over the border in Alberta. Visitors shouldn't really underestimate the size of the province, as Aisling mentioned. To see the sites here, the highlights, I'd suggest staying a minimum of 7 to 10 days, but you could very easily spend 2 weeks or more there. And Canada's great transcontinental train, the Canadian, also travels through Saskatoon twice a week, year round. It takes 5 days in total to get between Toronto and Vancouver. But for those with the time, this is a really relaxing way to arrive and depart. Most people, though, do fly to the province or drive from Calgary or Edmonton. And driving is very easy on wide open roads with very little traffic. It takes about 4.5 hours to drive from Calgary to Cypress Hills Interprovincial Park. And this straddles the border between Alberta and Saskatchewan, as Aisling has mentioned. And it offers great hiking trails, canoeing, fishing, and swimming in the lakes. Now, these hills were never glaciated, and so they have a very rich geological history. The park itself contains a mix of forests, wetlands, and grasslands, and is home to a wide diversity of plants and animals. For instance, over 220 bird species and 47 mammal species have been recorded. Two outstanding features of the park are Horseshoe Canyon and Resort viewpoints. And from those you can see the rolling hills, the coulees, and the prairie landscapes for more than 100 kilometers. You can also visit historic Fort Walsh from Cypress Hills. In the 1870s, this was home to the Northwest Mounted Police, which of course became the RCMP. Now, Grasslands National Park is about 3 hours drive southeast of Cypress Hills. It's Saskatchewan's second national park and Canada's only national park that represents the prairie grasslands. This is one of the nation's few remaining areas of undisturbed prairie grassland. The park is divided into 2 blocks, east and west, and each offers a paved scenic highway for you to explore from. There are plenty of opportunities to get out for a walk, look for wildlife, and learn about the park at the interpretive stops. The West Fork's Frenchman River Valley is where you can spot wildlife such as short-horned lizards, coyotes, rattlesnakes, and the very rare black-tailed prairie dog. In this slide, we've got another picture of grasslands. In 2005, the park successfully reintroduced prairie or plains bison, and it is an unforgettable experience to see these magnificent animals in their original habitat. Over in the East Block, you can spend a full day hiking the endless Badlands, where you'll find many dinosaur bones revealed by millions and millions of years of erosion. The first dinosaur in Canada was found here in 1874, a hadrosaur. In 1991, the world's largest Tyrannosaurus rex, Scotty, was discovered in the area, and he is on display at the T-Rex Discovery Centre in East End. There's also a life-size cast of him in the Royal Saskatchewan Museum in Regina. Grasslands National Park is a photographer's delight. The light is amazing due to such a wide horizon, and it really truly is the land of the living skies. I think this image highlights that. The whole national park is also a dark sky preserve and a fantastic place to go stargazing. There's no light pollution here due to the lack of nearby buildings and roads. The park gets just 12,000 visitors a year. You can compare that to over 4 million visitors to Banff National Park. So you can really feel as if you had the whole place all to yourself. Now, it's around a 3-hour drive northeast from Grasslands National Park to Moose Jaw, a town of historic buildings, huge murals, and many independent shops. Here you can take a trip back in time at the tunnels of Moose Jaw's past. Now, this is where Al Capone operated excessive bootlegging during the time of Prohibition. Today, the 1920s gangster feeling is brought back to life in 50-minute long interactive tours. It's a short drive here from Moose Jaw to Regina, Saskatchewan's capital city. Now, Regina is the Queen City. It's named for Queen Victoria and is home to a unique blend. It has a 100-year-old symphony orchestra and arguably Canada's most passionate sporting enthusiasts. In 1881, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police moved their headquarters from Fort Walsh to Regina, and since then, every cadet has been trained in the city. More than 1,000 young Mounties cadets complete their basic training here every year. You can learn all about this legendary police force using amazing state-of-the-art technology at the RCMP Heritage Centre. You can visit the museum's exhibit halls, tour the depot division and the historic RCMP chapel, which is Regina's oldest building. There are also lots of cadet parades during the summer months, the periodic sunset ceremony and the Sergeant Major's Parade, which takes place every weekday. At the heart of Regina is Wascana Park, which is larger than both Vancouver's Stanley Park and New York's Central Park combined, believe it or not. In 1961, Minoru Yamasaki, the architect who designed the original World Trade Center in New York City, designed a 100-year master plan for Wascana Center. The fountain there is one of a pair that were designed by Sir Charles Barry and were originally located in Trafalgar Square in London. The Mackenzie Art Gallery is also within the park and has the first Indigenous executive director and CEO of a public art gallery in Canada. The city has a young and exciting food and drink scene. You should try Rebellion Rebellion Brewing Company's lentil beer, an acquired taste, but very different, and visit Crave Kitchen and Wine Bar. The 3-hour drive northwest from Saskatoon enables you to truly experience the huge skies and agricultural heartland of the province. Now, Saskatoon is the province's largest city, and it's just a 3-hour drive from Regina. There's plenty to explore here. There are 7 bridges that span the South Saskatchewan River, which meanders through the city. Along the river's banks lies the Meewasin Valley, and this is hoped to become an urban national park. It has more than 90,000 trails across 67 square kilometres of land. That's a picture of it there. There's plenty to see and do in Saskatoon, including visiting the Remay Modern Art Gallery of Saskatchewan, the city's excellent farmers market, and, as Lynn mentioned, Wanderlust Heritage Park, which superbly explains the province's incredible Aboriginal heritage. In the evening, you can enjoy the sunset while strolling along the river promenade before sampling a drink or two in some of the city's many local distilleries and breweries. Lovely picture of the summer there in Saskatoon. Saskatoon is proud to offer plenty of farm-to-table restaurants and bars that showcase many delicious products of innovative and hard-working locals. And these include specialities such as award-winning gin and whiskey, and I can particularly recommend Black Fox Farm and Distillery, cider at the Crossmount Cider Company, Farm 140, an Odler restaurant and market, which specialises in home-reared meats and grains. Now, Saskatchewan is known for its agriculture, and a highlight of a visit is to experience a ranch. Historic Risa Ranch is located in the Cypress Hills near the Alberta border and has been owned by the Risa family for 6 generations. Here you can kick back and enjoy traditional accommodation with modern facilities, friendly Western hospitality, and activities that include horse riding, of course, ATV tours and walking. There are B&B rooms in the main building, private cabins in the grounds, but you don't need to stay overnight to enjoy riding activities. Day visitors are also welcome here. At the end of a long day, enjoy dinner at the Ranch Hall Grill and listen to cowboy poetry while sitting around the campfire, recited by your host, Scott Risa. Another excellent ranch option is Lariata Ranch, located between Maple Creek and Saskatoon. Suitable for beginners and experienced riders alike, Lariata offers daily horse rides through the open prairie landscape. There are lovely rolling hills here, many canyons, and you can ride across beautiful sloping beaches of Lake Diefenbaker. This is a working ranch, which means helping out is encouraged, but not a must. The ranch has over 14 kilometres of lakeshore, including swimming beaches. Canoeing, fishing, swimming in the sparkling lake are all on offer as well. In the evenings, guests are encouraged to gather in the very atmospheric Lariata Saloon for socialising over billiards or darts and hear a cowboy story. And I can particularly recommend this very atmospheric little place. Guests stay in private cabins. All home-cooked meals are taken family style with the ranch team at the cook shack. This slide just gives you an idea of the expansiveness of the terrain. It's absolutely amazing. There's a little picture here of around the campfire, me on a horse, not perhaps to be looked at in any great detail, and some of the riding activities, which are truly excellent. And just finally, I just want to say that, you know, at Audley, we have a team of dedicated Canada specialists who, you know, travel there very frequently. So you can be sure of speaking to someone knowledgeable and passionate about the country and the province. Every trip is tailored to your requirements, and we have some exciting and innovative ideas for you to consider. If you need any help in planning a trip, wish to receive a quotation, or just wish to chat through your plans, please do go to our website where you can look at our trip suggestions, request a copy of our brochure, or contact one of our Canada specialists. We would love to help you plan your trip to Saskatchewan. And on that note, it's over to you, Lynn.
Yeah, thank you so much, James. Oh gosh, I want to go to Lariata. I mean, that's my sort of place. It's wonderful. But yeah, I know that you love Saskatchewan, and I can see why. That really came over there. So welcome back, Ashlyn and Jodie. We've all been so passionate about it that we've all talked far too much, and I see we've kind of gone over time already. So we won't do too many questions because, of course, we will be doing that follow-up email where we can do more information. But I'll just run through a couple. So actually, James, somebody's commented that you said about it being great value for money. Use that phrase, and they've asked, is that all round, you know, or is it just accommodation? Is it food? Is it what? So I don't know if you and also Jodie could probably chip in about whether what do we mean by great value for money?
Well, I have travelled, as I mentioned, over other parts of Canada, and I think when I went there last year, it struck me that both the cost of living on the ground in terms of meals, drinks, general costs were less than in the most visited parts of the country. So, for example, the Rockies or Vancouver or the big cities. Accommodation also is great value. So compared to other parts of the country which are perhaps better known, it does represent fabulous value for money, for sure.
So very good. Jodie, anything to add to that? Oh, have we got your sound, or have you lost your sound again? Oh no. Oh no, I think we've lost your sound again. Oh gosh. Well, you ever think about that? I'll ask Ashlyn, because obviously, Ashlyn, you're well travelled. Does your home province strike you as good value for money compared to elsewhere?
Oh, absolutely. It's very affordable. You can get campsites for, £15 a night and up to, 20 or 30 if you have a camper with you versus if you're tenting. Accommodation ranges, I would probably say from about 100 to 120 pounds and up. Again, depending whether you're in a B&B, usually you can find those more rurally in small towns. And then, of course, we have all our hotels in the major cities as well.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Now, and I'm sure somebody, I can't find it now, somebody asked about, we've had a couple of questions about time of year to go and what it's good for. So first of all, Ashlyn, with winter, because you did have some incredible photos of winter. For us as a visitor, particularly us wussy, I was going to say wussy Europeans, but there's lots of Europeans on who aren't wussy, us wussy Brits. What is it like as a visitor? What will we be able to do in the winter?
Winter is my favorite season here. I love it. I love the outdoors. So you'll be able to go snowshoeing, cross-country skiing. You can still do some hiking in the winter months, but I always recommend taking snowshoes with you. We have snowmobiling opportunities, lots of skating as well, and you can rent all the gear as well. You don't have to bring it with you. The biggest thing I recommend is dressing appropriately for the weather. Layering up, having good insulating jackets and wool sweaters, things like that. That'll make the difference for enjoying the snow and the cold temperatures.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. James, what do you suggest to people about when to go?
Well, we can arrange trips year-round to Saskatchewan, really not a problem. We are not a ski specialist, so that isn't something that we would particularly recommend. But for anybody that wants to do outdoor winter activities, it's great to go, in the winter. The majority of our clients tend to want to go in the summer. And, that's when you'll probably find more, it's probably easier to access the national parks and see more wildlife. It's easier to see wildlife in the summer months, I would say. So the majority of people would visit then, you know, and that's when you've got fantastic, you know, it's light for an incredible amount of hours during the day. So lovely warm temperatures, as Ashlyn mentioned, lots of activities open, all the restaurants and museums are open. So it's a very popular time to go.
Yeah. And what would you recommend as God's length of trip? Now, I want Jodie and Ashlyn to close their ears because they're going to say, you know, stay a month, whatever. But stay 6 months. But James, what would you recommend?
Well, the majority of people, if they're working, you know, or even if they're not, you know, want to do a few trips, maybe a year. And realistically, we find that most of our clients will typically have between 2 and 3 weeks to spend, and that enables people to actually have a good comprehensive look at the province with, you know, without missing too many things out, but including quite a lot of activities and places. It can be combined as well with other provinces. So even if people aren't necessarily thinking about Saskatchewan as their first choice, I would recommend a visit and just tagging on a few days in conjunction with other provinces. That can be done as well. Although, as I think today's presentation has shown, it absolutely is a destination worth visiting on its own. It's a standalone destination. So, you know, as long as you have budget and time, you know, you can go for as long as you wish to. But I'd strongly recommend that 7 to 10 days is a minimum, and typically at least 2 to 3 weeks is an ideal duration if possible.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Okay, I think we are going to sadly wrap up because I've got so many more questions I could ask. So we will cover more on the thing. So I'm going to put you on the spot, which is terribly cruel. So just to wind up though, so I'm going to give you a second to think about it. Jodie, I might have to do it in the chat box instead. But if you could for somebody coming, what would be the one thing they've got to do? It's either a place to go or the experience they've absolutely got to do, they mustn't miss. And I know it's the hardest, horrible question. I'd hate to be asked it myself. I always hate that one. But I'm going to be cruel and ask you. So your number one tip. So, James, what would yours be?
Oh, this is really hard, Lynn. But I mean, I'm torn between two. Can I have two?
If you're quick.
I mean, Wanderlust is amazing, absolutely amazing, and almost unique, if not totally unique, amazing. But Lariata Ranch is incredible too. They're very different. Go to both.
Yeah. Oh, Lariata, that looked amazing. Oh, mind you, so much looked amazing. I've been making a list of all the places I want to go to. I see Jodie, because Jodie still hasn't got her audio back. So Jodie says, get out of nature, and Grasslands National Park is pretty close to her favourite. That looks incredible. Yes, I'd love to go there. It's amazing. Okay, last but not least, Ashlyn. Oh, this is going to be so hard for you. What would you say?
Actually, I would say Prince Albert National Park. It's a close drive out from Saskatoon, 2.5 hours, and it really gives you access to the most wonderful parts of nature that we have in the province. You get a bit of the plains, you get the forest, you get wildlife, you get all the outdoor activities. You have a great central hub, all the amenities that you want. It's so traveler friendly, whether you're with your family or you're on your own or with friends, whoever. So Prince Albert National Park. It's a great destination.
Okay, brilliant. Great recommendation. Okay, well, I'm so sorry we've run out of time. Oh, gosh, but we really have. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll look out for that follow-up newsletter, which you'll get in a few days with all the links, the place names, and you can even watch it again if you want. And thank you to our brilliant speakers tonight. Thank you, James from Audley. That was brilliant. Ashlyn, oh my gosh, you've got me wanting to go everywhere. Well, you both have. Jodie, so sorry you lost your voice, but perhaps it's just as well, or we'd have been here till midnight. But thank you for your sterling work in the chat box. That's been absolutely brilliant. So thank you all, guys. It's been great. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Good night.